Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this very special episode of In the Dark. With me tonight are recurring favorite guests here on BeyondMystic. So let me start with my introductions here in the order that are appearing upon your screen. First, let's welcome Maryam Henein. You can find her work at Maryam Henein on YouTube. Maryam, welcome back to the show.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir à toi. Second, LITECOIN Lisa. You can find her, of course, at LITECOIN Lisa on YouTube and on Twitter at Lisa Mighty Davis, I believe it is. Lisa, welcome back to the show.
Hi, guys. Howdy, y'all. I guess I don't speak French, so I'm from the South.
I love that. Howdy, y'all. Howdy. Next up is Amy Fulmer. You can find her work, of course, at amyfulmer.com. Amy, welcome back to the show.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Very good. And of course, my co-host in all of these series, Mr. Dave Bronan. You can find him on LinkedIn. His LinkedIn account is Dave Bronan. He is, of course, the award-winning problem-solving expert and also a treasure hunter. Dave, welcome back to the show, man.
Hey, it's good to be here. And JC, we're really lucky, I think, because we have this divine, feminine, triune panel with us. So I'm just going to sort of absorb the radiation here, keep my hands to the screen, revel in it.
Absorb the radiation. Yes, these ladies are radiating, and of course they're radiating not just with intelligence, integrity, and just awesomeness, but they're also radiating with immense information here for you guys tonight, as we're all trying to come together and decode what the F is going on in our realm. So tonight's episode, we're going to do a deep dive on the concept of the USA Corporation, its history, and how perhaps all of this conspiracy theory has more legs than we think in regards to going back to a constitutional republic. On that note, we're going to dive right in here with Maryam Henein's research. Maryam, please set that up here, how you want to proceed with your information. And as you go, I will bring your slides up on the screen for the audience.
So I'll speak a little bit that the narrative, I hear echo.
Yeah, so folks, we have just a bit of a bad connection. So when you're not speaking, please mute your microphone, and that will help here a little bit for the audience's sake. And of course, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here live on BeyondMystic. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe if you've just refound me now. And of course, we just lost Lisa's connection here, so she'll be back in a moment here. And yes, of course, it is an interactive show, so please do comment and share your questions, but be respectful. We all have different points of views, and we're all trying to get the bigger picture. So please contribute with us in terms of bringing that needle forward, in terms of deeper and better understandings. So let me see if I can bring Lisa back up. I think I just see her now. There you go. Let me bring her back up right there. Okay, Maryam, back to you. Sorry about that.
So no problem. There's a lot to say. I guess on the heels of this deadly insurrection and feeling like after saying and seeing clear shots to victory per the Constitution, and then having Trump exit and this sham show inauguration. So the narrative has been seeded with this reality that there's the republic and then there's a business, a corporation. And I think a year and a half ago, it came across like become a sovereign person, look into your rights. And I've also come across a sovereignty workshop while I was in Costa Rica, but I just didn't go, even though I was interested. So we've been talking about the company being defunct, the foreclosure on the White House. And I'm like, well, there has to be, where are the deeds? Where's this lawsuit? So I went into Pacer, and it's not the most friendly search. And I used a bankruptcy and versus USA. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of things that come under United States of America. So I came across a lawsuit, and I put it on my Telegram, and I shared it with Tribunal Watch and some other Telegram channels. And I prefaced, like, I'm just starting to dig on this. There's a lot of, I came across a 78-page document. The docket is full of different documents, which I have not looked at all, and I've not looked at all the people involved. And so I prefaced, this might just be a company called United States of America. And nonetheless, there's a lot of nuggets here it seems that we are being led to learn about the Constitution. And this is where we at. Maybe it's coping, where we're looking for some light and some answers. So yeah, I'll start. That sets it up. In the morning, I put it out, and I had shared it first with Zach Voorhees, the Google whistleblower, and some others. And then the next day, it had gone viral on the 8kun channels. And Zach's like, yeah, someone came up with, look at this bankruptcy document. And there was a letter from President Trump. And I'm like, yeah, that's my stuff. That somehow went viral. And then I connected with the lawyer, which I can explain what he said about this defendant. And he had gotten a lot of calls, and he had only returned the call to me, but he had Navy officers asking if he works for Trump, like just outlandish comments and questions. So this turns, okay, so let's pull, how's that?
Very good for an intro. Thank you for setting that up. And I want to also give that warning to the audience that we are doing research, and some of it here is live during the show. So we might air, but the goal is to look at all of these pieces and see where they fit, and where they don't, they just don't. We can hold them in the radar screen as we continue to unfold this story. First, Maryam, before I show your screen of some of your slides and your research here, I want to remind the audience also of your new Telegram account here. So let me bring that up for folks. And that is Truth Lives Here is your Telegram handle. And here, of course, you've asked a few people to help you and contribute to this platform. So folks, if you want to stay in touch with Maryam's work, this is the best place right now where all the data is converging into one spot.
Just to say, I have other content producers there and admins, and I'm all about cross-pollinating. And then there's a group chat, and I'm not in charge of if someone else posts, and then there's some disinfo, and that is part of it today. I mean, this is what they wanted, right? They said when you can't differentiate between the truth and the lies, and so this is reality. We have to use discernment and research and really dig.
And of course, you're referring to Mockingbird Media in the CIA program. But anyways, back to the show here. Let me bring up your first slide, Maryam, and I'll reconfigure this to make a little bit more room on the screen here. So go ahead, Maryam.
So can we go to another one before we get to
this? You tell me which one, but just give me a second.
Okay, I have to see more.
Okay, I'm going to remove this overlay here to give you a little bit more room. There you go. Okay. So that was the first slide in the sequence you sent me, Maryam. So let me know where to stop here.
Keep going to the next one. Okay, we can go here, and I can explain. Go up.
Go up. Okay.
So this is the part of the lawsuit, and it had all these DBAs. It's a person who hopefully we'll get to her name. She goes by Shekinah. Shekinah means dwelling of where the divine God is. So this person, let's keep in mind, has been to jail. Interestingly, yesterday was another filing, and she was labeled as a vexatious litigant. Never heard of that term before. She's no longer allowed to file suits. She's seen as a pest towards the government. So just keep in mind, if they say that she's crazy or whatever in the mainstream, if you read this document, there's a lot of groundedness and a lot of a sense of to the sacred of our sovereign rights. So she names the United States of America, and then there are DBAs, and there's China here. I looked at China Teletech. I could not find links. But then in another document, there are the articles of incorporation, and this China Teletech is connected to a family with the last name Li. It so happened that the intel officer in the military that I spoke to and someone else mentioned that Li is a well-known family linked to the Rothschilds. So again, just keep that in mind. Why are there China DBAs in connection? Is this person crazy? Okay, so you can go if anyone else has something to say here, I mean, this is a very small picture.
Go on, Maryam. We'll try to lay down as much track as we can, and then we'll open the conversation and share the data points from Lisa and Amy as well. So go on for a bit here, and we'll.
One thing, JC, for the benefit of the viewers, I put in the definition of vexatious litigant as somebody who files multiple lawsuits without legitimate grounds. And so I put that in the chat for people.
You're vexatious litigant.
Vexatious.
I think it's quite vexing, you know.
Yeah.
What was that girl from not Bird of Prey, but what was that? What was that girl? You know that movie I'm talking about with the Joker, the blonde-headed girl, Margot Robbie. She says, "I could be quite vexish," you know. Anyways, go on, Maryam. Don't mind me. It's late here. I'm getting a little bit giddy already.
So I called in the morning. It had gone viral, but I had just started my research. I put it out to get help from others. So I'm like, well, I need to call this lawyer. He called me back, as I mentioned, and he said that he was representing. She filed a lawsuit against someone who just called it the United States of America. And he said, oh, it's not the best choice. And he mentioned what the company was, so stating that she had made a mistake. But when you look at the articles of incorporation in the docket list, it's listed from 1925. Is he representing a company that's also been the US of A since 1925? I don't know. Why are these articles? Did she think that she was filing against the USA? This is valid, but that company is mistaken? Again, I don't know, right? So just thinking of all these possibility scenarios.
Okay.
So if anyone, okay, I'd like to know later what you guys know about the United States Corporation Company and 1925. So
that's interesting because some of the data I was researching over the last couple of days pointed to 1933. But again, a lot of this stuff is obfuscated or occulted from our knowledge in our history books. So it's very hard to determine. And that's what we're trying to do here. And I believe that Amy's piece and Lisa's piece here too will shed more light in all of this. So keep going, Maryam, with the lawsuit here and some of the history.
There's more, right? You got more?
Yeah. Yes, I have quite a bit more. So you tell me where you want me to stop.
Okay, we can look at this. This is in the lawsuit. I don't know the page right now. And when I posted it, I did put the case number. I paid for this. If someone wants to look, it's in Pacer. Just like the letter from the president. There's someone else that's implicated in this case. They have been gone to jail for fraud. Is that a legitimate document that we'll get to from the president? It's interesting, one part that's cited supposedly by him. Does Pacer or the courts do any vetting to see the president? Is it real? Or do they just put it in? So again, questions just to ask. What happened to the screen?
Oh, here, we're back. This is what I was talking about.
I haven't seen that movie. I want to see it.
Oh, okay. I'm sure the audience will laugh at that. But anyway,
Daddy's little monster.
Back to serious business here. Go ahead.
All right. So I'll just, as a result of this semantic deceit and duplicity, which is talking about the confusing the people between the Republic and the company, no valid new contract between the organic American states and the United States of America was ever established. They make the distinction between minor and major. The Constitution of the United States of America remains a document peculiar to the United States of America, minor, not to be confused with the original equity contract known as the Constitution for the United States of America. At the beginning of last century, there were two completely separate versions of United States of America operating, and two kinds of U.S. citizens and two constitutions, and the U.S. Congress was acting in two roles in conflict of interest. Do you want me to go on? So can we establish that this can serve as talking points, as launching points, that this person, if you look at the 78 pages, you can deduct the person's done a lot of research. They know there's some groundedness. They're not just a crazy person. It's just like a person contacted me and told me that they had neural links. They wanted my help on how to get them out. Well, someone else would just be like, this person's crazy. She's bipolar, which is what they labeled her. I don't do that. I take don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. All right. So
Can I mention something really quick? I unmuted myself because Maryam is so great at bringing all this research and all this, and I've heard this in a couple different things. I didn't know the significance. Once again, it's that like intuition gut thing. There's a difference in the word of and for. And in that document that you just read, let's remember that we believe Jekyll Island happened about 1913. That would make sense. This all is transitioning to the corporation in 1925, which then leads to the Great Depression in 1930. But what you just read, Jean-Claude, that Maryam provided, they said they were talking about the United States of America, and then they make the statement and go back, read through, and it says the difference. It talks about the difference of the two, and it says the United States for America. That's where the separation happened, I believe.
Very good. And of course, we've had psychics telling us for the last couple of months that we would go back to this parallel world where we would be governed by two different entities in the United States here. And this perhaps is what's going on now. In the news, of course, still in the news, is the fact that the military is not leaving. That was posted earlier today. I did a video on this, that they're staying until at least mid-March. We're still seeing reports that the Pentagon is refusing to provide the Biden administration with classified information. Again, seems very, very odd. And we have these continuity of government reports from all over the place that seems to suggest that people are operating from outside of Washington, D.C. So, again, just points of data for this conversation. Maryam, so please go on here. We were getting into the point where the Vatican shows its face.
I will go back to where I was. Sorry.
Yeah.
The original, and I don't know, Lisa, if you saw this, the original Constitution known as the Constitution for the United States of America, and the bylaws of the newly formed federal corporation known as the Constitution of the United States of America, formed under the auspices of the United States of America Minor. All this semantic deceit, and right here you see it's a deceit of semantics, was and is extremely complex and deliberately designed to defraud and confuse. So again, this seems like a lucid person to me. A separation of the land and sea jurisdictions was set up from the very founding of the United States, thank you, of America, and made by part of the Treaty of Paris, Treaty of Westminster, within the inner city of London, a separate international city-state, Treaty of Ghent, Alia. However, it was never envisioned that the District of Columbia would form a separate city-state and operate a separate national government under deceptively similar names, simply by allowing members of Congress to wear two hats and creating two kinds of citizenship. I think this is informative to read, if it's okay with
Absolutely.
Everyone.
Keep going.
For insight into this, read the 1850 Act of Admissions, which clearly delineates the role and identity of the original organic and uncorporated USA versus the United States, and the differences between the similarity named trust organizations and the commercial service companies. Also read the Reconstruction Act of 1867 and the Act of 1871, incorporating a municipal city-state government for the District of Columbia. Now let's just note to the audience and to you all, that this case started in 2014, was reopened in October 14 of this year, filed another document in November 23rd after the elections, and then was conveniently on 122 and 121 other filings, where 22 she was cast off as no more allowed to file suits. So that's also interesting timing. Okay, when the Second National Trust, known as the U.S. Trust, was formed to benefit the new District of Columbia city-state in 1871, the beneficiaries named were not we the people of the original National Trust, but a mix of living people born in the District of Columbia and other federal enclaves, including Puerto Rico, American Negroes, who were never granted other citizenship after the Civil War, federal employees, members of the active duty forces, and incorporated entities formed under auspices of the United States of America Minor. Unlike the United States of America Major, the United States of America Minor allows corporations organized under its auspices to be citizens, a fact that has led to no end of fraud and criminality. Presidents and members of Congress still take their oath to the United States, not the United States of America. Howbeit, this is a different company called by the same sounding name, the United States. This gives rise to confusion in the same way that two men called John may be mistaken for each other. Watch for this same use of mistaken identity as an excuse for fraud and despotism throughout the current system. The office of president is and always was a private business executive office, not a political one, and as a result, to this day, the president is elected to office by a privately drafted electoral college, not by voters in any general election. The original unincorporated trust management organization, first operated by President George Washington, was bankrupted by President Abraham Lincoln on April 24, 1863, as a result of the cost of the Civil War. 11 years of Reconstruction, also known as bankruptcy reorganization, followed, and a quiet usurpation based on semantic deceit and not so veiled fraud commenced. Administration of the American National Trust passed on to a new trust management organization operated by a cartel of international banks, which became the Federal Reserve as the United States of America, and doing business as the United States of America, Inc. In summary, our entire planet receives government services from one gigantic interlocking trust dictatorate, the Global Estate Trust. Okay, so should we go on or...
Guys, do you want to chime in here a little bit, either Lisa, Dave, or Amy on this before we move forward to the second part? Because we're getting into the City of London here and the role of the Vatican.
With all these confusing semantics, they were already gaslighting before the script for the play of Gaslight was written.
Absolutely. Just like the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor does it have any reserves, and it's not even owned and operated here in the United States of America. So the confusion is everywhere. Lisa and Amy, anything to chime in here before we continue the suit?
I have a quick comment here. This is utterly fascinating today because I went back to the very beginning. I started at the very beginning because I was like, if I was going to explain this story to like a 5-year-old, like how would it work? I am speechless as to what I found out. But what I'm fascinated listening to you, Maryam, is that a lot of what you're saying cross-references what I have. But what was interesting is because there was no way to make documentation. I started at 1788 and there just wasn't a lot of documentation. And you got to understand, because of the fraud and the crime, a lot of this stuff has been taken off the internet. So we don't have an access to archive to real documents. So what we're all doing here is we're grappling with what we do have, but understand, I agree with Dave. It's been a crime scene in our country since day one. Whereas when I went to school, it was like, well, there was Christopher Columbus, and then he came over on the Mayflower. Then we had a little tea party, and then we decided to pull away from the British government. And then we had these cool little colonies. I mean, I was taught like this Disneyland version of how our country was founded. And I'm reading this and I'm going, you know what, really nothing's changed. And I have some very interesting data points that marry up, only I went back to 1877 and got the original, because I had to start at the beginning of the Yellow Brick Road, because that's the way I function. And I felt like, how could I explain this if I had an 8-year-old or 10-year-old? Of course, they would know more than me, but it's fascinating to hear you, Maryam, because it's like, yeah, this is what I got too. So it validates our work that all of us, and you too, Lisa, same with you. And I'm like, good, because I didn't want to get on here tonight and give a bunch of stuff where it was lean or not properly documented. But back in, those days, they just didn't have the documentation. It wasn't like link, please, So it's very satisfying for me to know that I think we're really getting to the meat of something really concrete here.
Very good.
I just like to say it's not it's Shakina's. I found it, but that's why I think the timing of this filing of this person, the reopening of this case, and the incredible, I was thinking, I'm going to go to the look microfiche and see your documents, Amy. But the libraries are closed because of the Rona. So
yeah.
But hopefully the universe provides at this time to bring up this information. Of course, it's not by happenstance that this is happening right now. Dave, back to you.
I didn't hear your question, JC.
There's no question. I heard you. I thought I was interrupting you, so I was just putting you back on. No? Okay.
We're good. Thanks.
Lisa, anything to chime in before we get into this next portion here with the Vatican and the city-state of London?
Oh, always. So first of all, I totally agree that it's really interesting and beautiful that we're all bringing these pieces together, that we're all seeing it and we're all being used by the universe to help, whether it's through Shekinah or something that I heard through a friend. None of us are saying, once again, when God or the universe creates something or solve something, they make sure that everyone knows that it was God or the universe doing that. It wasn't an individual. So all this information that we're bringing, we know is divine. We know we're just channels and being used to bring it. But it's really awesome seeing all three of the things that we brought together chime together so strongly. Seeing more of the Nasera Jacera, whatever you want to put on it, if you want to call it Road to Ruta, Nasera Jacera, not the Great Reset, but this great awakening in our country, where we are having that education of America past this false narrative, like what Amy was discussing, what we were all taught in school about how, the Native Americans were so happy to share Thanksgiving with us because we stole their land and, did all this. So, but the reality of finding this true history, it also is heartbreaking to me as the mother of an African-American child, to see that how much the African-American community has been lied to and used to promote a narrative of, we all thought the Civil War was about freeing the slaves. Now we're learning it's about bankrupting the country and selling us off to the elite bankers. Once again, when does it end? Then the KK comes through, how many times are they going to use the African-American community to progress their narrative? I don't know. It's very upsetting
now. Black Lives Matter for lots of different reasons.
Once again, this is the thing, like that victim mentality that they've learned. If you go through a relationship with an addict, or you're experienced with that in your family or whatever, you understand the role of the enabler and the role of the addict. And the enabler wants the addict to be a victim because it gives the enabler power for whatever that is and makes them feel a certain way and gives them control of the victim. And the people that learn that being a victim, I was having lunch with my daughter the other day and she's like, Mom, it's so weird. Like there's these girls that they're on social media talking about how they're sexualized and they're so disgusted with that. Meanwhile, they take all these pictures with their tongue out and their boobs out everywhere, but then they're horrified when someone's sexualizing them. And I said, but babe, they want us to learn. They want to control us. Ultimately, like the power wants to control us. And they've learned that controlling people, let them think, oh, you have so much power as a victim. Go be a victim, because then you're always dependent on the power it gives you. And that's what just breaks my heart. But I think we are in this, like, it's beautiful that all these documents, and this is causing us to look back to, Amy's looking in the 1700s. Maryam is pulling things from 1800s. We need to know, our true history so that it doesn't repeat itself, so that we can be free from these controllers. So anyway, my rant.
Very good. Folks, I'd like to remind you, my guests here, to please mute your microphone when you're not speaking, because I'm still getting an echo here, and I'm trying to make it as easy and as bearable for the audience here. So I apologize if I manually muted you here, because while Lisa was speaking, I was hearing an echo. Now, a few people in the chat are asking for links and sources, and they seem to be very frustrated here. So I'm going to repeat what we repeated at the beginning of the show. All of these documents are from Pacer, this lawsuit, and you can find them right now now on Maryam Henein's Telegram handle. She's posted all of that there for you to go do your own research. And of course, you can log into Pacer and pay and do this research yourself. Now, the documentations that Lisa and Amy are going to bring up, I'm going to have a live link in the URL of the browser here, and I am also going to drop that in the chat for you guys to go do your own follow-ups. So that being said, Maryam, do we want to go back now to this next portion here that includes the links to London City State and the Vatican? I'm trying to unmute you.
I also, on my tweet, someone found the lawsuit on Courtlister, whatever it's called. Anyway, you can go to my Maryam Henein, and it should be one of the first ones. I mean, there's a whole docket, and the goal is to create a story. And I'm interested, Amy, being a Virgo rising, just in creating a timeline. I really like to create timelines in my stories to really understand chronology and the timing of things. So I don't know if you're doing that. You're on mute.
Well, in essence, I had to go back. My big premise today was I had to go back to ground zero. I had to start at the beginning because I've been going down this rabbit hole for 3 years personally. And I had to understand what happened this week. I mean, all of us are processing it on such a deep level, and being the grief goddess, I had to use some of my own grief work on myself. I had to reel myself back in. But ultimately, I wanted to dig back into the truth. I mean, that's where I come from. And I was very satisfied today with what I found. But what I believe I found, Maryam, and I want to be really clear with everybody. I believe, first of all, I am so grateful for all of you and so honored to do this work, because I do think it's God's work. But we're all a little bit right, and we're probably all a little bit wrong, because the documentation back in the olden days is just not there. Number two, I know now Google and all of the sources that I'm going to have all been scrubbed. They've all been modified. So what I have left to deal with is slim pickings. And then you've got to read through all the crap. So to answer your question, Maryam, I'm not sure, unless I went back to biblical times, that I really have recaptured, like the timeline. But for this show today, I was very satisfied where I started because it felt right to me. And I felt like I could come on this show and offer up the best document that I could find that spells it out. And I was blown away by this document. And so that's my most honest answer I can give you in terms of timelines. But I love creating a timeline.
Very good. And speaking of timelines, if you haven't seen this video of Cliff High dated January 6th, he's talking about progression of time in a cyclical manner as opposed to a linear fashion. And what he was explaining in all of this video is that we have many cycles of time converging on this point now. So go watch this video, because in the context of what's happening, you'll get a better view and understanding how all the forces that we see at play and the forces that we don't see right now being at play really connect with all of these historical moments and this looping of time and events. So fascinating video from Cliff. Go check it out. And we're back now to Maryam as we continue with the city-state of London connections and the Vatican. Maryam.
Okay, so mentioned this global estate trust, which I did not look into. Again, I didn't have a chance to go down all these tentacles. The gentleness with which generations of popes have exercised their power as the ultimate trustee should not be mistaken for lack of power, but rather as respect for free will and reluctance to interfere with those entrusted to administer their own affairs. In the temporal realm of pope is a man like any other man, and it is often difficult to obtain all the facts and to be assured of right action. Restraint and tolerance have therefore been the hallmarks governing the exercise of temporal power by the popes for many decades, but we are now entered upon a time when corruption and criminality have so far progressed among many governmental service corporations worldwide that maintaining the role of global trustee has acquired action by the Pope and the Holy See. Over time, specialized service centers organized as separate city-states have taken over specific aspects of the operations of the global estate trust. This so-called empire of the city spans the globe. Rome and Vatican City remain the home base of operations responsible for overall administration worldwide. The inner city of London, also known as Westminster, is a separate independent international city-state within London, and it is home to the Crown Temple, which administers legal services and is also home to the Fleet Street hub of international banking services. The District of Columbia, another city-state, is the center of defense and police services worldwide. The United Nations, yet another separate independent city-state, is the hub of international trade, aid, and negotiations. All right, so we can move on to mentions the Pope as the CEO in charge of worldwide commercial affairs. Okay, we can go to the next slide. All right, so in this lawsuit, the petitioning parties allege, is that 282 billion? Yeah. Okay, against alleged debtor based on a true bill, no copy of a document with the title of true bill attached. So she goes into, Shekinah goes into the fact that the Federal Reserve, it's not ever paying debts with the IOU, it's just carrying it over. And I think we'll go there. Okay, so here's the case. People want to look at it. It was dismissed on grounds. I don't know if that tells you, oh, she's a crazy person or the whatever. So there's also talk of Mar-a-Lago being a White House being used, that rumor that Trump just has gone to, go back up, sorry, to the blue.
The green?
Yeah, sorry, green.
Okay.
Okay, so Rick Shelby is the attorney I spoke to. Shekinah L, is that her name? Now, DBA, one of you or the audience might know there's supposedly a lot on Moorish Science Temple of America. And Sisteria Hevzibah is the name, again, Hebrew for Shekinah. And Malik is in jail for fraud. She has been in jail, so has her daughter, per the lawyer told me. Okay, so now this is supposedly a letter signed by Trump, dated May 4th, and the area that I highlighted, the bankrupt United States owes its true bill creditors, which is the American people, in direct relation to the borrowed gold and National Banking Emergency Act of 1933. Someone out there mentioned that date. It's important. And so you can read it for yourself. Again, I mentioned we do not know. I don't know. Do they do any vetting when they submit their documents? I've been in the court systems.
That's an interesting point you're bringing up there, Maryam, because also we've discussed it on our last show. I think it was with Lisa and Amy, this idea that maybe Melania Trump was talking about signing a Declaration of Independence last July. And this would be, of course, following this letter, perhaps, if it has validity from Donald Trump. So there are little bits and pieces there that may seem to connect here as we move forward in this conversation. But keep going, Maryam, if you want.
Someone said this is real Da Vinci Code angels and demons shit going on here. I love that. Okay, so go on. Let's go back. We can talk. Hopefully, you may add to the connection with the Vatican. All right, so the address that is listed, I looked it up. So it's a construction and roofing company. The company that's listed under the DBA. To note, I think I have the articles of incorporation, which links it to a Delaware, which I think is where the company, I don't know, the United States company, Real USA. All right, so here's the petition, the involuntary. And of course, everybody can keep in mind that anyone can file a lawsuit. There's no shortage of suits against Trump, for instance. This is Chapter 11. If you look at the debtor's name, it says United States Corporation Company. There is an EIN So again, it could be this company with an EIN, the owner's number. Someone owns the USA. So this is I don't know what code that is, 049. It's a foreign entity, in my opinion. Is that a real number in the United States? Subsidiary, blah, blah, blah. Corporation, service company, another EIN, another Duns bar. And I did not look in these yet. All right.
You just mentioned Delaware there, and that strikes me that no, I know, but the company had links maybe in Delaware, so it was a subsidiary of another company. Dave, did Cliff Hyde not talk about Delaware in our last show as well? What was the connection? Do you remember what he was talking about?
No, I don't.
Okay.
That's where Joe Biden's from, apparently.
Exactly. That's where Joey,
I did mention that. I did want to mention, for clarity, the DUNS number. It's a Dun and Bradstreet identification number, so it's a legitimate thing.
Yes, it is, but that could also show that this is a company called USA and not the
right. Okay.
USA company. So,
okay.
However, I make the distinction.
You guys, just so you know, DUNS numbers are only assigned to corporations. They're a way to ensure corporate credit, and so it's a Dun and Bradstreet, which is assigned to corporations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
I have a Duns bar number
for
my company.
But for the people out there who've been following maybe some of these freedom movements who talk about birth certificates and how they're connected also to Dun and Bradstreet and this whole hierarchy all the way back to the city of London, your ears might be echoing here as you're hearing this conversation. But again, that could be a whole 4-hour show just there. But just to say again, there seems to be all of these things coming back into the fold here. So I appreciate all the research, Maryam. Is this good, Maryam, for this segment? Can we maybe leave the microphone now to Lisa to share her piece? Or
absolutely. Can we just scan and I'll see if there's anything else?
Anything else? Okay, let me bring it back up for the audience here. So we were here.
If you go down.
Yeah.
Just so you know that this I wrote. Oops, go up.
I think that's it here. So okay.
No, this paragraph.
Okay.
This Shakina woman, Putnam County, Florida, supposedly received a passport with a fake name of so they say fake name. She gave herself another name. Haven't we all received smear pieces by now? I have. I can tell you, just take things with a grain of salt. Okay, she calls herself Shakina, and so this person has a record, so keep that in mind. And
okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, I'm at the bottom here of the email. It looks like there's nothing else here.
Okay, so there's more, and people can go and find it. I will say this, that on pages 68 and 16 to about 72 is a whole itemized, and it talks about all the acts, and this person has done hella research in regards to the history of the United States. So maybe I can share that. Can I share that in the private? Can I add something?
Yeah, send me the link in the private chat here and I'll bring it up for the audience.
But can you do an attachment? No.
No.
I'm going to send it in Facebook. Go on. Sorry. Thank you.
Did you send it in the private chat already? No. Okay.
I'm sending it in. Take it away. I'm going to send a few more that I find pertinent. If you want to give it over or take a look at it.
Sure. Let's start with Lisa. Let's get into Lisa's research here while you figure that out, Maryam, and we'll come back to that after. So Lisa, the document you wanted me to bring up is the continuity of government link. Is that the one? I think you're still muted, Lisa.
Actually, sorry.
Go ahead.
So sorry. But the first image was of 1871, and I think that will dovetail to what Amy has to say, or Lisa. But
the first image in the email you had sent me?
Yeah, we were going to go to it, and then I said, let's go down.
Oh, so this one here.
Yeah, here. All right, so that is from the page, so that this shows the itemization, and then it brings up the Constitution of the United States of America, 1871, established by the U.S. Congress acting as board of directors to form the United States of America, Inc., as a trust management organization to operate both the municipal government of the U.S., States of America, and to administer and fulfill the national trust indenture and service contracts owed the now 50 states known as the United States of America. The Act of 1871 formally incorporated the municipal city-state government of the District of Columbia as a separate nation operating according to its own government and code. All right. So thank you.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. And we're just trying to put this on the record, folks, and we're doing an overview of all of these documents, but we're providing links as we go ahead. So we do encourage you to go do your own research and to contribute on Maryam's Telegram as well. If you find new pieces of evidence that tie into this, please by all means share it with us. So back to you here, Lisa, and please unmute your mic.
Yes, I'm back. Unmuted my mic. I just really got enthralled with what Maryam was bringing up, and I can't wait to go back through and read those documents again, because I felt like I was trying to scroll up, but I realized you were live and I couldn't go back up. Right. So my friend Stacy had sent me this document about the shadow government that can be put in place. And then we had received, my husband had brought to my attention that, there was this, that it's not an official document, but we were told that CogCon warning was issued on the 19th of January. And so this continuity of government. Oh, you're back on CogCon. Okay, so CogCon warnings, basically the CogCon warning that was leaked supposedly through texts and emails on the 19th. And that says, like, be ready. And we might possibly issue CogCon 1. So there's like 1 through 4, 1 through 5. And CogCon 2 says your responsibility to acknowledge, so no action is required at this time with CogCon 2, but to be aware of the emergency relocation group member that you're reminded that should an order for continuity of operations occur, that you must report to alternate operating facility within 4 hours. So number 1, you reply that you acknowledge that. Number 2, acknowledged but not capable of reporting within desired time frame, or 3, acknowledged but not able to report to alternate operating facility. So they're talking about continuity of operations. And so that continuity of operations, that's the document that my friend sent me today. That looks like it was put in place. I can't remember when it was put in place. But basically to have this shadow government. So since the days of Cold War, United States has a plan in place to continue operation of government following a national catastrophe or catastrophic attack on the nation's capital. And I think that's interesting that they say on the capital specifically. In 2007, National Security Presidential Directive 51. If you guys follow some of the numerology stuff, and 51 and what the Masons really like that number. Anyway, directs the geographic dispersion of leadership, staff, infrastructure in order to maintain the functions of the United States government in the event the nation's capital is decapitated by a terrorist attack. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. They go on and on and on with this and talk about having this shadow government in place while they're handling the crisis on the Capitol. So is this shadow government what we're seeing right now in the Capitol while our real government leaders are safe and elsewhere? We know that CogCon 2 is associated with the continuity of government. We know this document exists, that there's this act for continuity of government. And then I think it's significant, the difference between the United States for America and the United States of America. And so we may have two things happening at the same time that we just all need to really be aware of. Yeah, and I think the National Guard troops, the treatment of them and the behavior of them has been significant and telling, in my opinion.
Well, absolutely atrocious conditions. And Cliff, when he was on the show with the Three Amigos, and Dave and I the other night, he was talking about just that. These are conditions of war. You don't put soldiers on concrete floors during winter with bad food and no bedding and all of this stuff. And of course, it begs to wonder what the hell is really, really going on. And of course, Trump gave part of his hotel rooms and lobbies to some of these soldiers here who were, again, sleeping in parking lots and stuff. So,
but Dr. Biden brought them a basket of candy.
Yeah, I saw.
That was so.
I heard those cookies, and they brought like 24 cookies for hundreds or thousands of men.
So gracious, so gracious.
Right.
Men, one bathroom.
Yeah.
Right. That's just crazy. Tomorrow, guys, if you're interested in this, we have a special report with Dr. Jim Willie, and that will be at 1 p.m. Eastern. I believe it's his first interview since the inauguration, and he is also going to be talking about this subject matter in his typical exuberant style. So we're very excited about that show. And so please do schedule in for that at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. And of course, the question in the headline here is, we are now a republic. The corporation is closed, ? And this is the conversation for tomorrow. So folks, if you're liking this content and you want to see more of it, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe here to my backup channel as we are trying to rebuild this community that was taken away in December. And of course, YouTube is trying to decide what you are allowed and not allowed to listen to, and you should be angry about that. So going back to you, Lisa here, is there anything more on that CogCon document that you want to bring to our attention, or is that pretty much?
No, I just think those two things are significant. I think they tie into what Maryam and Amy are bringing to the table. And then your comment of you should be angry about this. At what point do people understand this election was not stolen from Trump? It was stolen from the American people. And people thinking, well, this is why I don't get involved in politics and I don't even want to vote. Look at this and that. You are having, your rights taken away from you. They started with First Amendment with the censorship. They're going after your Second Amendment. The NRA membership list has been turned over to the FBI. What's that about? We're hearing all these strange bills about taxes on ammo. And I mean, do you know what the Third Amendment is? It's where they have the right to move into your home during a time of war, and you are to take care of soldiers in your home during a time of war. And they will sleep in your bed and they will eat your food and you will serve them if that's where we are.
Crazy times indeed. Well, thank you for this piece. Lisa, ties into everything here.
Can I dovetail on? Sorry.
Before we do that, let me ask Maryam, Dave, and Amy if they have any questions or comments for Lisa, and then we'll move on to the next piece here with Amy. So go ahead, Maryam, with your question or comment.
So Zach got to speak to this intel officer, and I did had the opportunity to ask her some questions and took some notes. This person is very, very intelligent, talked about psychic warriors, and was definitely very left brain, right brain, very high IQ and EQ. And talked about
I need that Jeopardy song in the background.
I just lost my notes. What's the term you use? But basically, a continuity of government, one, that we are there, and not two. So I'd like to pull up that definition for me and the audience and everyone, and that what is happening is that the inauguration was pre-taped, that it's for continuity of government for the narrative and for the show. But that is not what's happening behind the scenes. If you pair that with the concept of
Yeah, Jean-Claude, if you go to the other document that I sent you that talks about continuity of government, if you scroll down to the bottom, it lists in different colors. Yeah, they're the levels.
Oh, yeah,
And what Maryam is saying, okay, we might have had this rumor of CogCon 2 on the 19th, but we are in CogCon 1. And if you read what the definition of CogCon 1 is, that's why this pre-recorded inauguration is being perpetuated to all of us, and even these blank pages that Biden is signing to show people what would have happened, that's all part of CogCon 1.
I want to mention something on that. The blank pages, there's a document, I think I've got it loaded here, that shows a site you can go to that shows the executive orders that have been signed and then filed with the Federal Registry. There are 9 documents detailed, and it shows his signature on there. So what we think were blank documents, and I saw the videos being recorded off of a TV screen. It didn't resolve the detail, but I found another video that does show the text on the documents. It is kind of strange that he's not showing the documents and showing it for the crowd. And he's also, prior to signing these documents, these executive orders, that he's very dependent. Yeah, he's very dependent on notes to describe. Yeah, there's one comment he made, JC, about what am I signing here? But there's also just notes as he's doing the intro. He has 2 little note cards that he's working off of to make sure he can keep his train of thoughts. And you contrast that against other presidents. They would just go stream of consciousness. They just go off the top of their head. And of course, Trump, he would use notes to make sure he didn't, go far off, because he has so much that he could say. He's so good, such a good orator, and has so many thoughts on his head. He used that to kind of narrow the scope. But with Biden, it's a whole different thing. So there's interesting things we're seeing here that undermine, or really to show we're looking at this very surreal theater. It's just amazing what we're seeing right now. And this is just one slice of other things. We see Trump's behavior, which is very calm and at ease. He's golfing and everything. We see Biden, who's fumbling and mumbling and weird, people walking around the background behind the Oval Office. That's strange because there's no parking lot back there, no people back there. And then other things like the censorship that Amy referred to, and then the mainstream stuff. It's just very...
Well, and that's not to say that those aren't listed somewhere on a website saying that those are actually legit documents and they were filed. But once again, if you go back to that CogCon 1, all of that could happen, that people are seeing those documents. This is full deployment of designated leadership and continuity staffs to perform the organizational essential functions from alternate facilities, either as a result of or in preparation for a catastrophic emergency. So there's that can be part of the game of continuity publicly. That, we screwed it up with the parking lot and whatever, but we're going to post these documents on a website. That doesn't mean they were actually filed. I've heard they've never even left his desk. So I just think what we're seeing right now, nothing can be verified.
Well, okay, so going back to that question of the theater, I was bringing up this Twitter, of course, for people to see. This was so weird to me that there was a deep connection here between, what's the show called again? The Maiden's Tale. And of course here, Lady Gaga here and the Hunger Games. So there was that. But in terms of the fakery of the inauguration too, I'm looking for it now, and I thought I had tweeted it earlier, but can you guys send me the link of inauguration where Biden has his hand on the Bible, and in one scene, I believe there's 2 women behind him, one in white and one in pink, and the video continues and they disappear off the scene. So it's like it was mashed up together here. So again,
I saw it again. It does. I see her. I looked at it three times.
Me too.
And I just want to say, I was told that these are executive actions, not executive orders. Just putting it out there. I don't know. They're not
okay. You're talking about the EOs, but I was talking about the inauguration. All that there seemed to be a split screen where some people were disappearing off screen.
I talked about 2 things. So
okay.
Yeah. Let me just mention. I know the video Maryam is referring to. and I looked at it. I went through it a few times as well. And we don't know the geometry of the scene, but the camera angle is moving.
Right.
And we don't know the depth of field because of this is about a long focal length camera they're using. It's hard. The depth of field tends to get collapsed. So it looks like the people might be, the pink and white outfit ladies might have been closer to him than he really is. But if they're further away and the camera angle moves a little bit, they disappear from view. The camera angle comes back. Oh, we see him again for a moment. So I'd just say it's inconclusive. That's the best thing we can say at this point. But there's a lot of questions.
It's a piece of data.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's a piece of data, inconclusive at this point, but it would tie into some of the testimony, for example, of Charlie Ward, who said that he was shown footage of the inauguration 7 or 8 hours before it actually happened. Now, of course, I can't verify that either, but these are all pieces that we're trying to put together here in our understanding. And going back to these EOs as well, what struck me again also, like you said, in that video, I could kind of make out that I thought I could see text, whether it was just gibberish, lorem ipsum, like Latin, or if there was actual order there, I couldn't make it out. But typically the president, after he signs, shows the executive order. We're celebrating that order for people to see, and there's a snapshot. This did not occur here from the scene that I saw. So again, questions there as to what's really happening. And I want to thank Lisa for bringing this attention to the audience here about these definitions of CogCon 1 to 4, because it could explain some of the incongruities that we see. And there was also a report yesterday, and I'm sure if you guys have seen that, again, not verified, where some congresswoman, I believe it was, said that she couldn't even get to her office. They were going back home, and there was some type of issue where they couldn't have access to Congress. Words to that effect, don't quote me on that, but I'm still looking for where that report was coming from. So I'm not sure if you guys have heard that and if you want to add to that.
They're shut down through next week. They were sent home. So that's very suspicious. I just want to add the reason that Biden isn't holding up those executive actions or executive orders, my theory is he's a bad actor. And you could interpret that more than one way.
Yeah, I would agree. I wanted to say that FEMA was activated, so DC is arguably under lockdown, and people can't leave. Does that mean Lady Gaga's still in DC? What does that mean? Or do they get special access? And just with that continuity of government level 1, that this intel officer said that there is a soft takeover by a communist regime, that there are Chinese troops in Mexico and Canada, and that they have infiltrated in America. And so also that the military, in this document that Shekina mentions, that it said that the military is beholden not to the president, but to the Constitution, which was sobering.
Yep, very good. Okay, I think at this point we can move on to Amy's piece of data or piece of the puzzle here. Before I do that, I want to remind the audience here where they can find our lovely panelists this evening. You can find Maryam Henein here on YouTube, and you can also find her at Maryam Henein on Twitter. So please do and subscribe to her new backup channel, because her channel was deleted by YouTube. So we are all trying to rebuild our communities here. So we do appreciate you encouraging us and keeping the work moving forward here. So by subscribing, you are in fact helping us do that, and that is at no cost to you. Of course, you can find LITECOIN Lisa here as well on YouTube and on Twitter at Lisa Mighty Davis. And of course, we would appreciate it if you can subscribe to her channel as well. And finally, Amy Fulmer, you can find her work at amyfulmer.com. And here you can have access to her beautiful book, Don't Trip, Potato Chip. And this is all about helping individuals cope or parents cope with the death of a child. And finally, you can reach Dave Bronin here on LinkedIn. You can see here his profile. And of course, we always appreciate having Dave here to base out the maturity and the low voice baritone here on our show. I just love, and we have a lot of comments on that, how Dave, your voice is so soothing to the audience. So there you go, folks. That's how you can reach Dave. Now, going back to Amy here, as we go to this next segment here. Where am I going? This one here. Amy, where did your what's it called again?
The United States is a corporation. It's one link. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Can you guys...
Let me bring that down to the URL to the chat here for the audience as well, so they can go and follow along with us. There you go.
Great. Can you guys hear me okay? I know there was a little problem in the last show.
It looks good now, yes.
Okay, great. Well, first of all you guys captivate me. I can't take in enough of this. It's been a heavy week. I think we're all kind of recalibrating, and I think it's okay to take a pause. So this show is a beautiful thing, but as the grief goddess, I'm a truth seeker, and I have to say, I'm going to say two things. Number one, we right now are under a military coup d'etat in America, and anyone who thinks anything different is really delusional. I do know the CCP is involved, and of course we have the central banks. Our government is being taken over as we speak, and I lay my life on that. Number two, this alleged inauguration that we supposedly had was a satanic ritual. Okay? I do not say that lightly because I have been involved in satanic situations. And little things like, I believe, now this is not a fact, but the Bible that Biden was involved in was not the King James version of the Bible, which is typically been used by every president since time immemorial that I could verify. Okay. Now, granted, none of us are standing on the steps of the Capitol, but if you look back through my lifetimes, they always use the King James version to put their hand on the Bible. So we don't even really know, because it was a pre-recorded inauguration, really what went on there with the splicing and all the video trickery. I don't believe anything unless I'm standing next to someone and I see it with my own eyes. The other thing that we are aware of is that Biden was sworn in at 11:55. Typically, the office of oath takes place at noon. That's where the peaceful transfer of power takes place. So technically, Trump was still in power. And this is where it gets into this United States corporation. So putting that in kind of perspective, when I went out on my journey, I was looking to go back to the beginning and keep it really stupid simple. What is the United States corporation? My data, you guys, was lead. I spent the bulk of the afternoon looking at a lot of dry documents. Not only are they dry, they're heavy. I am not a constitutional lawyer, and I'm sure there's a few in the audience, but we're all working together to dig for truth, because we're not getting any on any media anymore. We have no truth and honesty in our system. So I found this document, and it was buried in a legal site. And what it did was it laid out to me as a layman, what is a corporation? How did it come into existence? What are the boundaries? What does it do? And how did it function? So before we go into this document, and it's 8 pages, you guys, I really hope all of you look at this, because it's very easy to understand. It's filled with facts that you can also cross-reference for your own good. We're going to go through only the first 3. But before I start, I have to kind of lay out to you what my takeaway was. And that will put into perspective when we get into the first 3 pages, because what starts to happen, as Lisa knows, Maryam knows, Jean-Claude knows, you go down these rabbit holes and there's a barrage of information, and a lot of it fights with each other. And because this was hundreds of years ago, there's a lot of confusion. I don't do well with confusion, so I try to keep things stupid simple. What I do know is this corporation was a result of the Civil War. America has a history of going into bankruptcy, which was news to me. So where we're at right now with the deficits and the overspending, it's kind of our thing. It's what we do as Americans. After the Civil War, we were in dire financial straits. No one would finance our folly anymore. As Lisa indicated, the Civil War was never about slavery. So what happened was we were desperate. And this, to me, was the beginning of the deep state. At this moment, the Rothschilds stepped in, the Vatican stepped in, and the English-British crown stepped in and said, you know, America, we can write a couple of checks here and just snap our little fingers and we're good to go. And they have had a boot on our throats because, make no bones about it, America is a very special country, you guys. We are in a planet in the cosmos. The Earth is special. In the universe, the Earth is special, but on the Earth, America has always been the crown jewel. Everybody is gunning for America because we're the only true bastion of freedom. But guess what, you guys? It was never like I was taught in school. It has been messy. It has been ugly. It has been riddled with crooks from day one. The legal system, the central banking system, the Vatican, the British royal family, and the Rothschilds. That is who has had they've just had their neck wrapped around us. And we get into financial trouble and they bail us out and they own us, thus the Fed. So when this corporation of the United States was formed, it's really interesting because as I read this document, my takeaway was this. This is really tinfoil hat, and this is just my personal takeaway. You guys read the document, you do your own takeaway. We're all going to have a different takeaway. But I'm very clear. This corporation was formed. It was formed with a geographic constraint of 10 miles around the area from the White House all the way up through the mall. It's a 10-mile area. It indicates that this corporation that was formed extends to that area and cannot be extended out beyond that geographic area. And at that point, the rule of law comes into the states. So that means since this time of the incorporation, Washington has been operating illegally. And oh, by the way, according to the document that we're going to get into, when this corporation was formed, which was a result of the central bankers, the Rothschilds, the Vatican, and the Church of England, it was illegally passed by Congress. Oh, gee, doesn't that sound like it's ringing a bell? So it was never legally done to begin with. The whole thing is a scam. It's fake, it's phony, and it's false. This is the trickery that we have been living under. Some very bright people fooled us and put it together. And when you have the central banks involved and you have the money that was originated, people can be bought, and that's what happened. Fast forward to today. This is my theory. This is really out there, you guys. But today, I was receiving information. Trump left. He never conceded. We have 30 to possibly 50,000 troops that are not leaving, that were supposedly placed there to guard a safe inauguration. I call BS on that. Okay? Number two, Biden has never been seen on Air Force One. We don't even know if he's a legitimately sworn in president because it was pre-recorded. And oh, by the way, you have Katy Perry, you have Lady Gaga. These are the adrenochrome, pedo, cabal, satanic people. I'm sorry to say it, but the dark is all over this. So let's not get confused, about what's going on here. Then you have Donald J. Trump. He never conceded because he's smart. What do we know about Trump? Orange man bad? Maybe think again. Because I'll tell you this. Biden comes into office, and one of the first bills he signed was to dissemble the ability for us to frack in America. Now, I'm not for fracking. Believe me, I'm not. But that just wiped out 10 to 30,000 jobs. Those were high-paying jobs in middle America. Those are gone. What do we need right now? Less jobs in America? Oh, gee, Biden, thanks. Thanks a lot, because those are your $80,000 to $150,000 jobs. Gone. Okay, so this man is not for America. He is not. Trump leaves and goes to Mar-a-Lago. What has Trump been telegraphing the whole time? Mar-a-Lago is the Southern White House. Okay, if you study the architectural lineage of Mar-a-Lago, it has deep roots. I contend that Trump knows that that 10-mile area of Washington, D.C. was illegally passed by Congress as per this document we're going to go over. And it was meant to control only that area. That power was usurped around 1877, and they lied to us and said it was a national governance. It says in this document that we're going to look at in a moment that the states, that control is not supposed to come over the states. So Trump is a master at bankruptcy, and he's a master with the law. He knows what's in this. So he's thinking, if he goes to Mar-a-Lago, we don't have a legitimate transfer of power that it only extends at best 10 miles. That means he can set up any type of, I don't know what to call it, because we've got 78 million patriots. They're not going away, guys. I don't give a shit what's in the Constitution. The sentiment will not change. The movement has been started. And if Trump doesn't finish it out, other people will. You cannot take our troops and stick them in a garage with 5,000 men in one bathroom, one phone charger, and then Biden waltzes in and buys them off with some cookies. Are you kidding me? When Trump says, come into my hotel, you guys need a bed. This is apparent. This is in your face. So what we have...
Let me just add, it's in your face as long as you're not watching the mainstream media.
Good point.
Absolutely, Dave. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is where the satanic part comes. The mainstream media is satanic. They are literally brainwashing Americans through waves. And we could do a whole show on what type of energy is being emitted through those shows. Another show altogether, but it's called Sigil Magic, Hidden in Plain Sight. Google it and research it. So we have Trump now at Mar-a-Lago. Didn't officially concede, understands that we have major constitutional issues that have legal issues, and he has 80 million Americans that will not leave his side. Biden's got about 6 people who stand beside him, and it may have dropped to 5 after those pictures got leaked of our troops. How dare they make those men sit there like that? If they were there for the inauguration, why aren't they going home? You tell me. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is fake, phony, and false. So I was sitting here thinking about all of this, and my head's going crazy, I'm receiving information from the other side, and I can't rectify this yet. So I found this one document. This is the only document that, listen, it could be phony. It could be filled with a bunch of BS, but everything in here can be cross-referenced. And this is the only document that I would bring on this show today. So
before I bring that up, Amy, I just wanted to back you up here too with what you were saying about this big illusion and about the fact that there's still millions of people following this movement towards freedom, constitutionality, rule of law, freedom of expression, all of these things. And here we have now on the whitehouse.gov, the videos are being down thumbed to a ratio never seen before. I mean, this is ridiculous. I usually, anyways, never mind my channel, but in general, this did not happen under Trump. Even on his worst day, we didn't see these types of ratios of thumbs downs to thumb up. And of course, there is an issue there on the mainstream media. And let me bring up this other poster here. They're referring to Joe Biden as you can read it, but at any rate, there's a big disconnect in terms of what the mainstream media is trying to tell you and what we're seeing in terms of real people engaging on social media. So let me bring up your slide here and we can continue with that.
Okay,
I mean, they
great.
had to turn the comments. Sorry, they had to turn the comments off. I mean, and then the other day by accident they didn't. And go and read them. It's quite revelatory.
Not just did they turn the comments off, Maryam, they also deleted some videos, including the one with the motorcade, which the thumbs down were just incredibly fantastic. Again, what the hell is going on? They can't even jerry-rig this. And I had another video there too, where they jerry-rigged the thumbs down a couple of hours later to not be as bad, but they were still atrocious. And that's on my Twitter, folks, if you want to go see that as well. But there's a lot of evidence of
Okay, but then
something really
Jean-Claude,
weird.
how much of this is so blatant that this is a movie?
Right.
I mean, even the come on. I mean and
A
I'm not
bad
gonna say,
one.
come on, man,
Cheesy
a
one.
bad one. But the I mean, there's almost like this boyish locker room humor going on behind the movie. Mnuchin, if you look at his work history, worked for Castle Rock as a producer, film producer. You're watching Swalwell having a gas attack and everybody's laughing. Like it's like locker room humor. Then what was the latest thing? Oh, Schumer saying that Trump is responsible for the erection. Come on. This cannot be. This is a movie, people. They're trying to get you to pay attention to certain things, but they're having fun along the way. I mean, I got to tell you, it helps me sleep at night. I think I have said multiple times, I think all this happened a few years ago. And I think this is a narrative to help wake people up, to let them see how close we were to losing the republic and let them know that Trump's not a dictator, that these people were planning to do all this. But to be honest, like, I think we're safe. I mean, I don't want to be complacent and I don't want to promote people to be complacent in that, but it's just a little too much, to be honest.
Right. Here's that Twitter feed that I was talking about earlier, where early in the morning, this press briefing had 10,000 down thumbs. And of course, a couple of hours later, somebody magically shaved off 7,000 of these thumb downs. That's very fascinating to me.
Okay, but Jean-Claude,
Because
you know how
they
many...
used Dominion. They used Dominion there, JC.
Right, but you know how many times...
Hey, don't
like,
get into that. We're gonna get swiped off right here, right now, live on the show.
Right, I've turned off my monetization this last week, and I'm like probably more than 10 times the views and whatever. And you've seen it on your channel as well, the manipulation. So to think that what we know, they're capable of it. So why are they allowing us to see that many downvotes?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. That's a good thing. Like, are they just overwhelmed? They're playing whack-a-mole with the Hunter Biden videos and stuff that they forgot to look at the account on the White House to equalize all the thumb downs number. I don't know.
Are they letting us see, or are they showing us?
Yeah.
There's a lot of critical thinking here.
I spoke to the most unwoke people this morning, and I mean that in a nice way. Like, they're just old people watching CNN, and that's their reality. And even then, they're like, something's weird. Why are the troops not leaving? I'm like, yeah, I know, right? Like, and never mind all of this conspiracy stuff. I mean, Carrie Cassidy was saying that her reports and insiders were saying, never mind the National Guard that's on top. We had 26 or 30,000, and now we're getting reports today that at least 7,000 of them will be staying at least until mid-March. But she was talking about reports that Marines were actually underground in some of these tunnels, which of course has not been reported in the mainstream media. Of course, we don't see this. So there might be the as above, so below there going on as well. So crazy stuff. But I mean, the people this morning were like, yeah, there's something going on. The inauguration didn't look right. And I'm like, yes, I know. So even the normies seem to be waking up to the fact that something is not business as usual here. So, okay, sorry, Amy, we keep cutting you off here. We had all of these good stuff to put in there, but let's get into your document here.
Yeah, no, listen, no worries, you guys. We're just going through this together.
Right.
Okay, so this is a document that it's kind of a synopsis of, by definition, what's going on here. It says the United States, and I'm going to be very careful when I read this, was formed in 1871, which controls only the District of Columbia and the territories it purchases or acquires, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands. Many think that income taxes and some laws do not affect people in sovereign states of the Union, as they are outside of the control jurisdiction of the United States Corporation. The United States of America is different from the United States Corporation. The terms United States and or United States of America and or United States government are all a private corporation, even with registered trademark. The U.S. corporation, originally called the District of Columbia, get this, you guys, does not affect or control the 50 sovereign states that are protected from the federal government by the U.S. Constitution for the United States, adopted in 1877. Whoa, let's stop right there.
1788.
1788. Let's stop right there. That's why I think Trump left and said, fine, I'm out. Because this right here says what comes out of Washington does not bleed over into our states. Let us continue. There are two United States, one formed in 1787, the collection of several sovereign states of the Union, and another separate and different one formed in 1871, about 80 years later, which controls only the District of Columbia and its territories. Others may give you specific references and explain this further. Here is an outline of the concept. The date is February 21st, 1871, and the 41st Congress is in session. I refer you to the acts of the 41st Congress. So that's a data point you can look up. Section 34, Section 3, Chapters 61 and 62. On this date in history, our nation, Congress, oh God, this kills me. Congress passed an act titled An Act to Provide a Government for the District of Columbia. This is also known as the Act of 1871. What does this mean? Well, it means that Congress, under no constitutional authority to do so, created a separate form of government for the District of Columbia, which is a 10-mile square parcel of land. So let's stop a moment here, guys. Congress goes against it again, willy-nilly going off, passing an act that's illegal. Okay? The Constitution for the United States of America was adopted. Okay, so then they adopted it on September 17th of 1787 by, here we go, these are the people that certified it, the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and then it was ratified, which means rubber stamped, by the conventions in each U.S. state in the name of the people. So that's total F-U-C-K-E-R-Y. They just did this whole thing, said the people signed off on it. It was completely illegal. Now below here, you have a page, and I'm not going to read this, but you guys, all you lawyers out there, the highlighted areas are fascinating because this is what the legal, evidently the document that they passed. But I also want to note here that Congress has the power to exercise exclusive legislation in all other cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square. That's at the bottom of page 2 of 8. Basically, that says to me that Congress cannot act outside of this 10-mile geographic structure. Let's move on to the third page, and this is where the truth bombs come out. And whereas on February 21st, 1871, the 41st Congress, see, they keep passing all these illegal acts, passed an act entitled, An Act to Provide a Government for the District of Columbia, legislating the organization of a municipal corporation to run the day-to-day affairs of the District of Columbia, the seat of government, which transferred, here you go, you guys, the United States of America, the Republic, into a corporate entity entitled United States. In capital letters.
Hold on, Amy. Tell me where you are here because I lost you.
I'm at the top of, JC, at the top of page 3, first paragraph.
I'm
Page
not sure
3.
what page I'm on here.
It's up in the corner. You'll see, because there we go, right there. You got it.
Okay. There you go.
Okay. So here we go. Into a corporate entity entitled the United States in capital letters, having no jurisdiction outside the District of Columbia in red. Now that says to me, now this is where you guys weigh in. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a constitutional expert. That is red right there. It basically says that our Congress can operate within that 10 square miles, but they can't operate outside. It's on to the states at that point. And whereas, here we go, the Congress adopted, they just said, okay, fine, the text of the federal Constitution as the Constitution or charter of this municipal corporation. This municipal corporation was granted the power to contract to provide municipal services to the inhabitants of the District of Columbia. Fine, we get that. And necessarily as an operation and privileges of immunity, clause of Article 4 of the Constitution. So now they're kind of toying back and forth with our Constitution. And any other person who chooses to contract for services. Is there fraud in our ranks? Okay. The Black's Law Dictionary states pretty much of what Webster's dictionary does, but adds about 2 full pages of information. My favorite part is a fraud means a false representation of a matter of fact, whether by words or by conduct, by false or misleading allegations, or by concealment of that which should have been disclosed. So that means that Congress should have disclosed this to the people. No, they just went and willy-nilly did it. Oh, gee, does that ring a bell? Which deceives and is intended to deceive another so that he shall act upon its legal injury. February 21st, 1871, Congress passes an act to provide a government for the District of Columbia, also known as the Act of 1871. Now, here we go, you guys. This is truth bomb number 1. Right there in bold letters, with no constitutional authority to do so. Congress creates a separate form of government for the District of Columbia, a 10-mile square of land. See Acts of the 41st Congress, Section 34, Session 3, Chapters 61 and 62. That is the truth bomb of truth bombs, and I think Trump knows that. The act, passed when the country was weakened and financially depleted in the aftermath of the Civil War, was a okay, you guys, hear me. Only one thing you take away from this tonight was a strategic move by foreign interest, quote unquote, in parentheses, international bankers who were intent upon gaining a stranglehold on the coffers and neck of America. Congress cut a deal. Oh, gee, do you think a few people got a few checks? With the international bankers, specifically the Rothschilds of London, to incur a debt to said bankers because the bankers were not about to lend any money to a floundering nation without serious stipulations. They devised a way to get their foot in the door of the United States. The Act of 1871 formed a corporation called the United States. This corporation, owned by foreign interests, moved in and shoved the original Constitution into a dustbin. That was the beginning of the end. With the Act of 1871, the original Constitution for the United States of 1788 was defaced, in effect vandalized and sabotaged. When the title was capitalized, and Lisa, this ties into what you said, and the word for was changed to of. In the title, the Constitution of the United States of America, 1871, is the Constitution of the Incorporated United States of America. And then there's 2 more pages of this, but that to me was the truth bomb. Our Constitution was hijacked by the central bankers, and Congress signed off on it. Everybody got a big check, and off we went to the races, and nothing has changed since. Trump knows all this.
Wow. A couple of things here or there. Let me bring this little quote up here for you guys to see. When we're talking about these foreign bankers, I care not what puppet is placed upon the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire and controls the British money supply. This, of course, is by Nathan Rothschild. Now, just this last week, we had news that this gentleman here just passed away. So, and again, just another piece of the puzzle here that everything is not as we are being told. Something is afoot. And of course, I want to bring this one back also.
You may have gone into hiding, by the way.
What's that?
You may have gone into hiding. That might be cover for some other act.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He might be on Mars, on the moon, or perhaps in another crater here on Earth. But that being said, we also have, and I say that for a reason, and we can do a whole other show on that. But this also here, as we understood, the Vatican Bank being responsible for maybe some of these bribes of politicians around the world. We have 9 of these bishops who died on a single day here last week. So a lot of things going on here. So going back here around the table, Maryam, do you have any questions, comments for Amy's piece here of the puzzle?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. During your bit of showing the manipulation, there was a comment that the Coast Guard is leaving as we speak. Are they leaving? You saw that comment?
Yes, I brought up the comment to say, no, I believe you're wrong, because in the news today, of course, we're hearing that the National Guard is staying. They're dwindling down the numbers to 7,000 right now, and at least 5,000 will be staying until mid-March. That is still the official statement in the news. I haven't seen any other news otherwise to that. So perhaps the gentleman or the person who was quoting that had not seen that piece of news. Now, if there's another piece of news that contradicts that, please do bring it in the chat here and we will look at it.
Okay, then I was just looking to see who is this Foundation for Truth in Law, and it's a church, 5013, whatever classification, 508C1A. So just to tell people, because I was like, oh, I'm curious to see who are these people, because I could tell this was editorial. They're explaining things, just like the lawsuit that I'm bringing is a lawsuit and has some editorial in it. Anyway, and I was curious to go back to the 1871 at whatever point to look at what she says now that I have more context or we have more context of what 1871, what she says. Shekinah in, and we can do that later, whenever.
Okay.
And also it says it was trademarked in your document. I'm curious to see who has the trademark. And then lastly, the articles of incorporation I showed were from 1925. So does that mean it is a business called United States that has nothing to do with this? Or could there have been articles of incorporation after 1871 or 1871?
Okay, I'll hold on for a second there. Amy, Sherry Finelli is asking for the link. I've just put that back here for the second time in the chat below, so you guys can go and check that out and do your research for yourself. Back to you, Amy.
Yeah, so thank you, Maryam. These are really good questions. I had all the same ones too. So we have all kinds of processes, and this is very complicated. We have ratifications. We have Congress passing stuff that legally shouldn't be passed. We are living in an era where the documentation is spotty at best, the 1800s. And by the way, don't you think that there might have been a few fires or maybe some beautiful documents suddenly went missing? You can bet on that. So again, we're all sort of grappling in the dark. And when I did my research, I tried my best to find what I felt was something that you could cross-reference, some of these articles of the Constitution, these congressional hearings, these ratifications. At least these are dates that you can go back to. In terms of having trademark patent information prior to any type of computerized or microfiche documentation, again, you're looking at the late 1800s. I just don't know what's available. I can't say, I don't know what to say about those days.
Probably in the deep recesses of the Vatican, or maybe or maybe in some of those buildings that Cliff High was reporting that could be broken into here very shortly in terms of his temporal markers, which relates to secrets revealed. So who knows? Stay tuned for those developments.
It brings up the. There's all this Ministry of Truth vaporizing of history. I mean, we just saw the deadly insurrection narrative rewritten in front of our faces to people who were there in real time. And we've also, we've come to the point where we know what is right, or we have truth, we can't back it up. So how do we exercise change if the truth, there's so much gaslighting and it's a cheese ass Hollywood production? Just rhetorical questions to put out there.
Yeah, and for the audience out there, this is why we're doing this show, and this is why we're happy that you're here and you're participating with us, and this is why we're asking you to share these videos, share them with your family, your friends, your neighbor who maybe doesn't know what's going on, and not as proof, but as evidence, that culminates into another narrative that is very different than the one we're being told on mainstream news. So please do help us out here and share these messages and these videos far and wide. Dave, how about you? Did you have any questions for Amy on this piece of the puzzle?
Yes, thanks, JC. And this could be for Amy. And Amy, that was, that was brilliant. What you dug up and the way you presented it was really wonderful. So we're operating on this thesis. I'll call it a thesis for now, which is a theory that we're looking to then prove or disprove. And that thesis is the United States is a corporation. We've been living under this corporate control. It's a big facade. It's an illusion, and that's going to be underpinnings for a strategy that we believe is being carried out before our eyes, or maybe behind the scenes, but we're kind of witnessing this timeline in history. So it's the thesis that we have this corporation that we've been living under. And I'm wondering what ideas does Maryam, Lisa, Amy, JC have for how the viewers can individually use this information to be, have this information be useful to them, and then maybe also for the broader collective consciousness. So I'm very curious what your thoughts are on that.
Lisa, I'll start with you. You're not used to being so silent.
Well, so I'm taking notes like crazy. So I'm trying to do a better
Right.
job at not interrupting. And so I'm just taking notes like crazy. And I'm excited about the information that everyone's brought forward. I'm writing a timeline for some of that information, which I think is significant. One little note, 1863 was the bankruptcy. And at that time, Lincoln, who was the 16th president, was in power. So if the bankruptcy happened in 63, even though Lincoln wasn't killed till 65, that was the end of the United States for America. It was bankrupt at that point. So if we are to be brought back into the United States of America for America, the next president under that would be the 17th president. Take that for what you want. I know a lot of people are talking about the 19th president because they're extending it until the new United States of America was formed, but we aren't acknowledging that. We're from the date of bankruptcy and renewing that republic, constitutional republic at that point. So that's a little that. The other part of this that's significant that Maryam brought up and Amy's talking about is this education that we're having by going back through this in the education of America. Lenin said, give me one generation, I'll change the world. And on that basis, they asked Rockefeller, what's the most powerful, or maybe he had already been, so he gave like $1 million donation to create this school board of, or board of schools, I can't remember what the exact, board of education, I'm sorry, for the United States, of America, we're past and he became the lead of it. Bitcoin Ben we did an Educating Lisa. He told me about how they took this cute little lady who was very educated, took her all around the United States, got everybody to agree that, yes, we need this board of education, and she would be the leader of that. However, Rockefeller took that position with his $1 million donation. And there are quotes where he's saying that that is the most powerful position. They said, what, even more than the president? And he quotes Lenin and says, give me one generation and I will change the world. And so this rewriting of history that is false, that's been smeared, defiled since 1963, 71 officially, I believe we are going to have the re-education, which would go back to Trump's EO about the constitutional education of America through the court systems, through individuals, everything, and brings us back to that constitutional republic. I mean, I believe this is why this is all happening. This is why this is unfolding in front of us. This is why people like Maryam and Amy are finding these documents and showing all of this, because we need to know we're not going to be complacent in this lie anymore. We're all looking for the truth. And so it's just really exciting to me. And I love all the moves and plays of it. I love all the little hints and the cues. And I think there's so much there for critical thinking. And I think it's really going to awaken America and the world.
Very good. Thank you so much for that. Okay, are we ready for Dave's piece of the puzzle here?
I want to comment.
For Amy before we move forward? Maryam?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, yeah.
So there was a comment that you can only file bankruptcy 3 times. My other comment, someone mentioned, Lisa, you mentioned the 1863. I think that's when Lincoln bankrupted the country the first time. So that's in her timeline, this Shanika woman. And certainly, this is not the first time. We're not the first to discover this. There's many people that have a sovereign class where you learn, if you're representing yourself, just the nuances, again, whether it's semantics or not, of how to navigate this system, which I think, one of them is relinquishing your social security. There's steps, right? Which is taught in this class. And I was going to do a consulting with someone who was like, I'll free you. So just to put that notion, because I feel just honestly for myself, and others.
Speak a little bit closer to the microphone. Maryam, you seem far away all of a sudden.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello? there's coping mechanisms. So I want to make sure for myself, I'll speak for myself, that it's not coping mechanisms. I felt like, oh, now it's like back in and doing more research, and now I have to to expose the sham show. I mean, Hollywood has been involved, wag the dog, in politics for a long time. Maybe when you look at the DNC's production and the RNC, you could see the different styles, and we've seen cheesy, so cheese, all year since the Rona. So these come just these random thoughts. What else? Again, I was told, as I would love to see Trump waltz in March back, and whether at the Mar-a-Lago, that Trump was an operation and that there's been a soft takeover. So if there's a common enemy being China to the CCP, does the left and the right come together? And would Trump be in charge, or is the military in charge? So that's my comments. Thanks.
Very good questions for the audience to ponder, and for us also to continue our research. Now, let's go with Dave. Dave, I believe the first slide, you had sent me the videos, but I think we've gone through that already. So I believe this is the slide you want me to bring up next. Is that confirmed? Dave, you're muted.
There we go.
Dave, there you go.
Got it. No, I'm not. I mean, that's something that I looked at. I sent that out, a link to that or something, that some different format of that. So no, but well, actually, I just want to come back to the question that I posed, because I'm not sure we really addressed that. And that is, so if we're working under this thesis that we've been under this corporation, and we've been, a lot of great research has been presented here by our divine feminine triune panel. How can people use this to benefit themselves and the broader collective? So there's kind of like two paths on that. I'm very curious, what do we translate this to? How can we apply it or have some action behind it? So I'm curious what thoughts people have in it. So anybody on our panel, any of our three women guests could just speak up if you have some thoughts on that.
Who wants to go first?
Yeah,
Amy?
I have a thought. Americans right now feel very paralyzed, and I really identify with that, because as a grief specialist, when you lose a child, you're so paralyzed. I mean, your whole life is in paralysis. Lisa knows this only too well. So here's the deal. You can't move forward in any type of paralysis unless you dig down to the truth. I believe that all healing starts with education. It also starts with a reality check. And you have to kind of strip yourself and get honest and get real. When I started going down the political rabbit hole 3 years ago, my mantra was, I lost my child, I'm not going to lose my freedom. And I became so angry. That was my first thing, because I knew my whole life had been a lie. What I want for people right now is, don't feel that you have to like march on Washington or like storm into your governor's office. Violence is never the answer. But first start with educating yourself. And that starts with a lifestyle of turning off the mainstream media, understanding that we are living in a propaganda, political coup d'etat. It's not your fault. You're not crazy. But what you should do is, this is what I would recommend as an action plan. Take a pencil one day and just write 10 truths for you as an American moving forward. I was told by one of my family members that I shouldn't wear a MAGA hat. I completely disagree. I will not only wear a MAGA hat, I will wear whatever I want, whenever I want. I'm an American. I can dress any way I want. I will not live in fear. So one of my truths is, Patrick Henry said, give me liberty or give me death. That's why I do the work I do. I'm not afraid to die for my country. I've been through the worst. So I say to people, just sit down one day in quiet and say, as an American moving forward, now that I realize that everything we've been told is propaganda, it's a psyop, it's a satanic ritual, or maybe you just don't like politics in general. What do you want to see for your country? Because guys, it's up to us. Like, it's not just on Trump anymore. We can't just say, oh, Trump's going to come in and save us. We have to save ourselves first. And that means participating, whether you go to a local group of friends and start setting up an organic farm stand on the weekends. You just start, deciding you're not going to mask up if it's not real to you. Wear your MAGA hat, whatever. It's tiny little things that create sentiment in the world. The sentiment of 80 million people that voted for Trump isn't going away, guys. The consciousness is in the collective right now. So do that. Just sit down and write down 10 things as an American. What does America mean to me today? What have I learned from all these truth bombs? And let's just say 50% of what I've said tonight was wrong. That's okay. We don't have to be right 100% of the time. Let's just get thinking. Let's get out of the matrix. Let's get out of the mind control. We are under a coup d'etat right now. And we have to create the way. So start internally. That would be my first thing. And that's what I tell parents in grief. You've got to go in before you can go out. Because unless you go in, you got nothing to give out there. And as an American, we have to go in right now as a country. And I know what this country means to me, and I will die for my country, and I'm not afraid. So that's what I would recommend. Start small baby steps, and you'll make it. You will make it, and you'll feel better about what you do. And you know what? Every ounce of your life will change. I promise you. That's my recommendation.
Very good. Thank you so much, Amy. And PCG Terry saying, right on, Amy Fulmer. That's it. Next up, to answer that question from Dave, Lisa, what say you? Oh, your microphone, Lisa. Let me unmute you. There you go.
Sorry, I may have muted myself because I'm over here chomping at the bit, making my notes so I don't interrupt. Dave, I didn't mean to not your question charged me with those thoughts, and so I was just really but I guess I didn't explain myself very well, but it's very much in line with what Amy is saying, where this is a focus on education, and like Amy said, and let's remember that and I believe we're in a time of war, we're not going to know, and for all of us to try to figure this out and, oh, I know what's really happening and all the details, and for me, that CogCon notification, whether it was real or not real, put in place that we don't know what's going on, and that's okay. When you're in battle and your leader tells you, get down, you just get down. You don't ask why. You don't stand up and you say, well, I need to know why exactly that I need to go, duck my head and whatever. You put your head down. And I think that's one thing that all of us as Americans right now can do is to, as Amy said, violence is not the answer. This is a time for education. This is a time for us to, if you want to get in a trench and dig in and be part of the fight, it's for that education piece. And, we're really, and it's okay that we don't know what's going on right now, but know, like Amy said, know what you believe as an American. Read your Constitution. Empower yourself in, the Constitution was based off the Magna Carta, which is our God-given rights. Learn the difference between common law and civil law. Take that time to really empower yourself, because we're moving forward. And once again, as Amy said, what does our new future look like? Because we get to decide as Americans, we get to come together and say, I'm going to be a part of this, or I'm not going to be a part of this, because ultimately we all are sovereign. And that's the ultimate, that was the dream of America, is that we were all sovereign and that we had small government, not this big government lording over us. So what does that look like for us as a community, as sovereign individuals? And I think Amy gave great advice to make that list and what does your future look like moving forward? But critical thinking is a skill that has been lost in these indoctrination camps through our public schools. And that's what we have to reignite. And I think that's why a lot of this is happening or playing out, for people to have those critical thoughts. Like you're saying, you know, even your parents and friends that watch CNN and whatever, like, that doesn't really make sense, you know, to have those thoughts. Yes. So let's continue that narrative. What doesn't make sense about it? What does make sense? Where can you go from here? You know, so just to encourage that conversation and try to meet people with as much love and understanding, because they're coming to you with a very genuine hearts that they've been told this and that by mainstream media for so long that it's not making sense to them. And so some of them are pushing back and being aggressive. And, you know, I get having boundaries with that, but there's a lot of them that are just really confused. And we can help them kind of walk through the way to say, like, right now is not the time to know about the details, but it's to know about the truth and what are our facts or base in the truth that was given to us through the Constitution and the Magna Carta.
Very good. Thank
Lisa,
you. Oh, Dave, hold on your thought. Let's get Maryam in, and then I'll get you to close that loop. Is that okay?
Sure. It's your show, man.
Well, it's the divine feminine here, so I thought we get the three on record here, and then we'll come back. So, Maryam, what are your thoughts on David's questions?
I would look into the class on, my goal when I was in Costa Rica was to take that class on sovereignty, the differences between common law, just know your rights, and then share it with my audience and empower others. And maybe the time has come. I feel, for me personally, my message has always been nature, and to connect with nature, to really cultivate gratitude, which is alchemy, which I've said on your show many times, and a simpler life. So I think everyone has their purpose, and we know to put down our oxygen mask before we can help others. I've given it my all this past year. I feel personally I need a little bit of pause, and I'm waiting to see if there's any truth. Like, I cannot, with my intuition, envision 4 years of this bullshit. I just cannot. And I feel that there's something else at play, but I also don't want to be disillusioned or go on another wild goose hunt, which is, you know, so that's for me. I don't mean to sound disparaging in any, because obviously I haven't stopped, and that's why I wanted to, like, is there any merit to this? So that's my takeaway. I feel people need to really become self-sufficient, which many of us have been saying, to prepare and get out of the city and realize epigenetics is real, and nutrition and health and what's important in life.
Very good. Thank you. Dave, your supplemental.
Thank you very much, Maryam, for your perspective. And I think that's really balancing, because we get so wrapped up in the world events and the news and what's being posted, and we get detached from nature and what's like to actually live and and be in that space. I wanted to mention, just as Lisa was talking about, you know, when your commander out in the battlefield says, you know, get down, we don't challenge that, we do it. And this discussion that we're having, I think, is giving us a better idea of what is the terrain of the battlefield. And so when we need to act, we have a better sense of confidence, the appropriate action, whether that's preparation or response to some development. So I like that metaphor. So the education of this talk, the research that you all have brought forward, is helping us be prepared to take the appropriate action. And also, I think there's that aspect for us individually is, if we're suffering from cognitive dissonance because we're so attached to the outcome of what was going to happen on Inauguration Day, and it didn't happen the way a lot of us thought it might, a lot of us have been feeling this tension, this emotional tension, and this is helping us to give some perspective. It's like, okay, well, all right, we still have this other context, and there's a lot of reason for we should still have hope for how the plan might play out as we ultimately hoped it would. And we can also help others. There'll be other people, as kind of cited, that they're going to be not prepared because they've been watching the mainstream media, and we can be somebody that can, like, well, let me clue you in a little bit without having to preach to them, but help them as they're adapting to what we think is going to transpire. And I just love how, JC, I think you were talking about somebody who's an older person, they're just watching the mainstream media, and they're starting to see the cracks in the veneer. And I'm so grateful for that, because that opens the door for a conversation, especially if they start expressing doubt or questions. So anyway, it's, you know, I always think about what's the intent and how do we make what we're doing practical, because this is going to play out over some time. Our consciousness might help influence the timeline in a positive way, so this is helping that. But just there's a lot of energy we're putting into this, and I hope I want us to get the most out of it. So there's my comments on that.
I want to just pose another rhetorical question is, you know, they're gaslighting a deadly insurrection, and at what point, and I don't stand for violence, and maybe I've shared this already, if there's unconstitutional acts, which we've all been exposed to this year, and tyranny, why isn't it an insurrection valid? At what point do we, the people, are allowed? I mean, it's unfortunate what the footage is. It doesn't make Trump or anyone look bad, and now we're all domestic terrorists. But was that our chance? Let us not fool ourselves of the possibility of being infiltrated by communist China. Let us not also, and again, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, because I'm not. I look at the glass half full, that the Great Reset is in motion, that these mother effers are hell bent. So again, I think it's like, someone said no masks. Like, I'll take a bullhorn and go in the streets. I don't give a crap. But I've also noted that I need to be in numbers. I'm happy to lead the pack. But, what ended up happening the other day is now I'm arguably on I can't get my chocolate avocado smoothie. So I'm just saying, like, I just want to be grounded and realistic in our approaches. It's evident that the right, to label conservative, are not organized like the left is. It's evident that there's a fractioning of the GOP, of this new party that's, so anyway, I just want to put that out there.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so I want to also answer your question, Dave. Before I do that, I'll answer Chris's question here on the screen. Says Jean-Claude, where can we get show links? Okay, I've been putting the links over and over in the chat, and I know that scrolling because there's a big buffer here with the 1,000 people in the chat room here. So what I've done as we were talking here, folks, and let me bring that up so you can see it. I've put what I understand to be the links from our guests here in the description box of this video. So the document Lisa was talking about is here now. The one from Amy is here. And Maryam's documents and her research are all on her Telegram. No, this is the wrong one. It's supposed to be Truth Lives Here, Dave. So I'll fix that as I go here, folks. I'm doing this live for you guys.
It's right.
It's right?
Truth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's Truth Avengers is the URL.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I got that right. And as we go in here, I'll also put Dave's links as we get to his piece. So that is there now, and it is saved. So you guys can go and check that out and do that research. So thank you, Chris, for reminding me to show this for the audience. And now to answer your question, Dave, you asked, how do we use this information for ourselves right now, and how do we help humanity? So I believe I've answered this question 2 or 3 shows ago with Woo Woo Dude, Richard, and Jason Ib4, and I actually made a 2-minute clip of that. So I'm going to play that here for the audience and let you guys know that if you haven't seen this episode, highly recommend you go check it out. So let me play this here as my answer to Dave's question, and let me know right away if you cannot hear this.
The point that Richard was making, I think that's very important. And right now, in the last couple of days, we're seeing a lot of people really, really depressed. Things didn't happen the way they thought it did. And I wanted to maybe encourage them, maybe have them step back and see what I see and why I think there's still encouragement here. So a lot of people that went through this process of taking the red pill, they went through years and years of being the black sheep of their family, not being understood. They had to really see some of the ugly stuff around them, and it was a hard time. And then suddenly they got comfort when they saw people like the David Wilcox of the world, the Q movement, the semi-personal, because like, okay, fine, I'm not alone. But here was the trap. They fell back into needing external validation. So when you take that red pill, you start using your heart discernment. You're not using your eyes anymore. You're not using your ears. You're not listening to your friends. You're listening from the heart. And all of these movements around there, I'm sorry to say, they're all distemporal. Like Joe, Dave, you and I, we've all identified the real disinfo over the last maybe 10 years of doing this. But even the good guys here, in my mind, are disinfo. And I'm not saying that to piss on anybody. What I'm saying is, even them who think they're doing a good job, who are getting these inside tracks, absolutely by the nature of the game, they're getting also wrong information. Right. Because the white hats are trying to destabilize the enemy. So they're not going to tell us all the truth. So again, be very wary of everything you listen. And on my show, I keep saying, listen to everyone, follow no one. It really comes back down to here. So that whole idea of, yes, it feels good to feel in community. All these people think like me. But then again, that's external validation. Go back inside, trust your heart. You've done this for years now. You've passed that gate. Don't go back the other way and look for everybody else to tell you how to feel. You know how you feel. And it's not because right now in the media, you're getting gaslit like never before that you have to lose confidence. You know what you know. Trust yourself. That's it. And everything else is going to work out.
You know, you're so right.
All right. And I would add to that, folks, be compassionate to your fellow human here as they wake up as well. So that first part is, of course, information is power, and you can't get fooled when you know the facts. And of course, there's been treachery and fuckery and all of these legal systems as we've described this evening. So empower yourself and be there, of course, to empower other people who are just now coming online. And together, that's where the change happens once we raise that frequency of knowledge and that frequency of power. So that whole idea of giving the power back to the people starts right there with this education. That's my answer, Dave.
Very good. You know, it's thank you. You must be psychic, JC. I say that to him very often because many times he has prescient information. You know, that idea about going inside is so important right now because we can't trust the mainstream media. That's all big mind fuck. It's a lot of that gaslighting going on. The censorship on social media platforms is not blocking us from accessing information. They'll waken us up. There are people that are deliberately trying to deceive us on social media. And I'll just take a simple example. The Bible thing that Biden has hand on, somebody photoshopping that and making the crosses upside down. And then that starts making the rounds of social media. And then the well-intended people who are communicating what they think is true, but it's inaccurate for some reason. And that can just get to camera angles on Kamala Harris's Bible. And, you know, does she put her purse on top? It's like, well, it said Holy Bible from another angle. We don't know what's in there, but, you know, there's that confusion, the telephone game stuff that happens. So, and we're not on the inner circles to what's really going on. So the bottom line is we can't really know with 100% confidence on anything. So where do we go? I love your answer. Got to go inside. How does that resonate with me, or is it dissonant? Oh. And I get dissonance every time I see anything to do with the Biden illusion, and I get something that resonates well when it's something that, you know, harmonizes, when it's something involving certain other things. And I'll be vague about that, but thank you very much. And that's very helpful. I think hopefully the viewers found that helpful. I think it was also very validating for me as well.
Very good. And Dave, I believe we've talked about everything, but is there still some documents that you wanted to bring up and share with the audience here in light of this conversation and maybe other pieces of the puzzle, or have we?
I've got notes that go on for miles.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we're going to do more of these shows in the next couple of days and weeks as things unfold. So, Dave, I guess we can call it partie reprise in French. We're already 2 hours and a little bit more into the show here. So I think what I'd like to do here is go around the table and ask each of our divine feminine archetypes here to give us their last words of wisdom for this evening, and to also let us know, and let the audience know where they can go and support them, because of course all of the work we're doing here is viewer supported. For the most part, we've all been either demonetized and ostracized from a lot of our revenue sources here. It is economic warfare to be doing this work, and of course if you can support all of our co-creators here tonight, universe will be thanking you and rewarding you for that at some point down the road, as we are all part of this collective. So let me start, I guess, with Amy. Amy, your thoughts as we close up the show tonight, and where can we support you?
Yeah, basically the bottom line is that I want everybody to know that as a parent who has lost a child, I've been in the darkest days. I know those days, and you'd be amazed. You'd really be amazed that how far you can come, if you just hold the faith. My life now is nothing like I thought it would be after my son died. So I know that as an American country, we're very dark right now, but I know that we can come back to happy days again. I don't know what that's going to look like, but if I can come where I came from, we as a country can go any place. So if you know a parent or someone who's dealing with grief, my book, Don't Trip Potato Chip, all the links can be found on my website, which is amyfulmer.com. You can go to Amazon and find my book there. And on my website is a free download, the Parent Survival Checklist. And that's an immediate call to action for parents or anyone that's lost a child in particular. Grief is something that is shoved under the carpet. We are not taught how to grieve. And so many people are grieving right now on so many levels. So my work, it knows no bounds, really. And however, I do know that the darkest hour is always before the dawn, and I live to tell that story. So please don't lose hope in our country. We will get through this. We will. I know that.
Thank you so much, Amy, for being here tonight and providing all of your research and your words of wisdom and your really, really deep compassion for humanity. It is very much heartfelt to all of us. And thank you for being here. Maryam, you're next. Words of wisdom and where we can support you.
Words of wisdom. Well, for me, I feel like I'm gonna, my advice or guidance or what I'm going to be doing is giving, just waiting to see the dust settle, and then my goal personally is to get the F out of Chinafornia, and I really think it's about micro community, nature, being self-sufficient, cultivating gratitude, mindfulness. That's what I pray for the world, more self-awareness, really the ability to stand right there and look at yourself, and whatever tools, there's tons of them to gain that awareness. Because I really think for me, as someone who's almost died many times, to master myself, and we are amazing creatures, as someone who's reversed autoimmune conditions and lived in chronic pain and almost died, that life is precious, life is short. I just want to be mindful of 2 weeks to stop the spread. And here we are. So just be mindful of we give, because we are hopeful creatures. Maybe if there's something that you want to do not languish. Go and do it. And I've been consumed with the news. Many of us have. And I am so honored to be with you and to have audience. And because many of us have lost friends or can't relate to them anymore, they can't relate to us, or they think we're crazy, so on and so forth. So gratitude, I would invite you to go to Activist Post. I've been covered the elections, and I just did a piece on deadly insurrection or false flag attack at part 1, and I'm almost finished part 2. And I will continue to do research. Please follow me on Truth Lives Here, Truth Avengers, Telegram. I have others such as JC as moderators, Vivian Kubrick, Tribunal Watch, Zach Voorhees, and Twitter, because I lost 8,000 followers. I'm you can follow me there, and on Gab I'm Lady B, and I have a check mark. I feel so special. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. I've learned a lot. I took notes, and I love collaborating like a worker bee with her hive.
And of course, she forgot to mention here, if you want to and you can support her financially, please do so at patreon.com/Maryam Henein. So Maryam, thank you so much.
Thank
Go
you. I'll
ahead,
just
Maryam.
add that I lost my processor on January 6th, and it's been 3 weeks of lost income. So yeah, please, all the stories I write for Activist Post, and it's free. I'm a talented writer, and a makeup artist makes more money than I do. What is that about? Okay, thank you.
Well, there you go. So let me just finish this. Of course, you can support her on Patreon, and you can also support her by buying some of these beautiful products here that you can find on Honey Colony. And there, of course, there is a coupon code for the Beyond Mystic fan, and that is one word, Beyond Mystic. So Maryam, thank you so much for being here on the show. As a fellow Canadian, I love that you're here with me, and we're all in this together. It's not just an American thing. This is a worldwide planetary war, spiritual war that we're in, and you are quite the fierce warrior-ess, goddess here in this triune. So thank you so much for being here. We feel your passion and we feel your authenticity each and every time you're here on the show, and the audience keeps sending me email to that effect. So again, Maryam, thank you so much.
Thank you
for being here. Next, to finalize our triune here, LITECOIN Lisa, please tell us your last words of wisdom here for the audience and where we can find you and support you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to answer. Maryam had a great question about like, what's it going to take as we go through this? And she's seeing, us losing our rights and our, First Amendment and all that. And I go back to until it gets personal with people. And I don't know if that's, Biden making this EO that masks and vaccines are mandatory in children, or if it's going to be, now they've turned over the NRA membership report to the FBI, and if they're going to try to take our Second Amendment rights, and maybe a little bit of both. But I know from my own experience, my mom is who got us into cryptocurrency, and that's what opened my eyes to our financial system and how corrupt it is and how worthless the fiat dollar is. But had I not had the experience, had it all been just so easy for me and signing up for an exchange, I wouldn't have valued it as much as being refused to purchase it through an institution I will not name, but also uses Institution of America. And because that, I learned about the difference between private banking and investment banking, and how that word "of" really matters. And I think we drilled it down today. And so until people have that personal experience of it affecting them in a way that you don't have your freedom is stopped, then I think they'll rise up. So that's where I am concerned of, at what point does this have to get to in our country for all of us to stand up, and not just the country, but we're seeing it all over the world, like you said. And then Dave was mentioning, and Bix and Jenny Moonstone did a great reading the other day and talking about palindrome and how we're in these days where 1, 2, anything, and then the year 21. So it's the same forwards and back, which is think mirror. Things are uncertain. Things that appear one way can also look the other way. Because when I saw the close-ups on Moloch's hand on top of the thing that they're trying to say the binders, later after people were saying, oh, she put her clutch on top of the Bible, and you could see that it had like a hump in it, and it wasn't a flat book. And then later there were pictures sent out, oh no, this is another angle, and then Holly Bibbles written on the binder of it. So when is the truth? Was the truth first time where I saw her hand and it had an arch in it, or was the truth the side of the thing? So I think a lot of that is not being so tied down to those kind of details, but engaging that critical thinking and saying, okay, I'm just saying something's wrong here. Now, where can I go look for some truth? Because I'm not going to get the truth out of either one of those. And so recognizing that and engaging that critical thinking, I think, is a huge, huge step for us. So I kind of think that's where the future is going with this. And I'm grateful to be in the presence of these wonderful, beautiful, smart women, and you handsome, intelligent men as well. So thanks for including me on this. You guys can find me on YouTube. I'm LITECOIN Lisa. Amy and I do a show every Tuesday called New Truth Tuesdays, so you can find that. And I also, this last week, I got a couple strikes, so I demonetized everything just so I could keep my channel up as we go through this transition, because I do believe it's somewhat temporary and I want to be a truth teller. And I believe God is our protector and provider. And so I want to keep sharing as much as I can with as many people as I can. There is a way for you to donate on any of the links on the description of my videos. You can find a coin tree link, and that gives some cryptocurrency addresses you can donate to support the channel. And then I also have a Patreon that you can go to, and that's the stuff where, like, when my friends that I have, that whether they're former naval intelligence or woo-woo people, or just people who are really into following this, anytime they send me some information, I share that with my Patreons so that they can have those critical thoughts and comments as well. So I'm really trying to expand that and engage, because I think that we're all smarter together, kind of like we did tonight, that hive mind thing where we all came together, and it was really wild that none of us really talked about what we were going to talk about, but we all came together with things that all complemented each other. And once again, I think that is universe using us, and what an honor to be used to share the message.
Right.
So that's my...
Yep. And of course, you can find LITECOIN Lisa here at Lisa Mighty Davis on Twitter as well. And there you'll have your notifications of all her upcoming shows. So thank you so much, Lisa, for being here tonight. Thank you so much for bringing your research and your wisdom to this panel. I'm continuously impressed by everything you do. And I'm so excited that you're on YouTube now and you're doing your own shows. And quite a road we've been on here since we first met, Dave, you, Jason, and I in Texas a couple years back. So quite fortunate it is for me to have all of you here tonight. So thank you, Lisa, again for being here. So now, last but not least, my co-host for this series, Mr. Dave Ronan. Let us know, please, your words of wisdom as we close off the show tonight, and where the audience can find you.
Thanks, JC. I really think that with all the censorship, all the media nonsense, all the charade that's going on, it's causing people to wake up. These conversations are helping people wake up. And this audience has woken up, I expect the majority of already. But the people maybe outside this conversation, they're seeing the cracks in the veneer. And people maybe who are maybe on the fence are getting more of a conviction about, oh my God, there's stuff going on, and they're getting more red pilled. So I think this will only serve to expand that body of people, the percentage of the population that's awake, aware, and taking the appropriate action to help create the outcome that we want, to restore our constitutional republic and to restore our sovereignty. So I really see that as being really the final idea is this work that we're all doing, and even the people listening and watching this on the replay, they are helping to expand that consciousness, which is, the more they try to hide this, the more they try to censor, the Streisand effect starts kicking in. People's like, well, if you tell me I can't look at something, I want to see what's behind that curtain. And I think that's really going to backfire on the powers that be. And thanks, JC, for putting up the screen for my LinkedIn page. I put the link in the chat just now, and then also the name you see on the screen, Empire Builder 1. You can use that for Gab. You can use that for Telegram. You can also find me on MeWe at the name Dave Bronan, but mostly Gab and Telegram are what I'm using the most.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dave, for that. And thank you for helping me with all of these shows. Of course, I couldn't do it without you. You and I started this trajectory back in November with our marathon 8-hour show on election night. And we're still going strong, and we're still having fun here with the audience. So, man, thank you so much. Again,
you're welcome.
Couldn't do these without you. So that's it, folks, for tonight. Let me just please bring your attention to...
say thank you to you. Thank you.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second, Maryam. We'll come back to that. First, guys, you can see me, find me, on Twitter here at Beyond_Mystic. This is where I post every day some of these news articles and pieces that I'm trying to bring together in my mind so that I can build this puzzle. You, of course, can find me here on my new backup YouTube channel. As you know, I was deleted back in December, and I'm just now trying to rebuild that community. So please do, if you like this show here tonight, please subscribe, and also please forward these videos to everyone you know that need or are looking for this new information to empower themselves. Also, as we go on here, we've heard Mr. Jack Dorsey saying that he's not done with censorship, and there's quite a plan moving forward here to continue to suppress the truth. So please do come to my BeyondMystic.net website, and at the bottom right corner here, fill out your name into this mailing list so that if I do go down here on YouTube again, I will be able to email you and let you know where I will be broadcasting from at that point. And last but not least, if you can and you do want to financially support me, you can do so at patreon.com/BeyondMystic. And here, the Insider Access Pass is where I put all of the information that has been censored or deleted from these other channels. And this is also where I create added value content for my Patreons who make it possible for me to be out here doing all of these shows here on the front line for you guys on YouTube. So thank you. A big shout out to all of those Patreons. All right. Phew. I think that's it for tonight, folks. Maybe
Yeah.
a big thank you. Wait. Okay. Big thank you to the audience. I'm really, really glad you guys are here. I saw a lot of great comments out there, a lot of love for the panelists here this evening. I really appreciate that. And I know that sometimes this information is dark. I know, but that's part of becoming how do you call it, a master of self, right? You need to be able to integrate all of this information, and you need to find a way to use that heart muscle for discernment. And sometimes that process is difficult. I know that a lot of you, maybe not you now, but a lot of your friends and family are still used to being spoon-fed that pablum on the 6 o'clock news, and you need to help them by holding this frequency, even if some of these pieces are dark sometimes, so that you can hold that knowledge so you can help and be compassionate for all the other people who are just about to go through that Tory gate from the mundane to the divine. And this is what this channel is all about. I really appreciate all you guys for being here, helping me do that on this journey that we're on. That's it for tonight. Folks, anything else you guys want to say?
And was thank you to Jean-Claude for honestly being a wonderful moderator, as Alan Livingston said, and for bringing people together to synergize and connect and inspire critical thinking and conversation. Thank you. Aho.
Well, thank you so much for that. And last but not least, for tomorrow, if you guys want to have another wild, really wild ride as we talk about this corporation being defunct and this return to the constitutional republic, or a new version of that, please do tune in at 1 o'clock Eastern PM time here for this interview with Dr. Jim Willie. You guys don't want to miss that one. So on that note, folks, I am Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystic. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.